Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I hope you guys are doing well. Welcome to Money in the Morning. This is where we get together every day and we discuss the art of economic elevation. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and I hope you guys are having a great day. It's so good to see all of you. And I hope you can hear me okay. Let me know if you can hear me okay. I decided to address you guys from a different space, as you can tell. And I hope that my audio is good and my video is good and everything else. And it's a Saturday morning. And so if you're here on a Saturday, that makes you extra special because not everybody gets up on a Saturday to learn about economics, but those are the people that are going to win. Those are the ones who are going to be successful. Though you're the canaries in the mine, you're the ones that the world will have to acknowledge because you're going to have special, exceptional skill at what you do. All right. So how many of you know um, about what's going on in the NFL draft right now? One of the biggest storylines that's happening in the draft. Give me a yes if you saw what's going on with Deion Sanders and his son. And it's really unfortunate, because his son is super talented. His son's name is Shedeur. Shedeur plays quarterback, and he's a damn good quarterback. And it's so so here's what happened. In case you don't know, I'll give you guys the brief on it because there's a big economic lesson here that I wanted you guys to kind of pay attention because I told you the world is a classroom. Unless you turn it off, unless you avoid the lesson, right? If you don't want to learn the lesson, then the lesson is not going to chase you down too much. The lesson is going to show up later on in life and kick you in the butt. But if you want the lessons are right there in front of you. God slaps you in the face and sort of tells you how things work and how you can prepare yourself, for the future in order to get what you want. And so here's what's going on right now. So Shedeur Sanders is a damn good quarterback. He is talented. I don't know if he's as talented as his daddy. He's got a lot to prove to do that. But still, his daddy was probably the greatest, probably in the top 10 greatest NFL players of all time. So his father was a high standard to meet. So Shedeur really, really works hard. He's got a lot of confidence that he got from his father. They seem to have a family with good values. I've heard Deion Sanders talk about manhood and fatherhood and things like that. And these are things that I really care about deeply because I think that we understate the impact of Black fatherhood and the lack of Black fatherhood in terms of what that does to our kids. And in fact, I'm going to show you all a video on that in a little bit to just really kind of accentuate that point. Because if you're talking about things like economics and stuff like that, and you talk about Black economics, and you don't address the broken Black family, then you're never going to ever have a true conversation about Black economics. Let me know if you get what I'm saying. Like, you can't talk about the struggles of Black people without starting with the fact that Black children are not protected by a father. Don't you dare ever tell me that fathers are not important or that mothers can do what fathers do, because that's a damn lie. That's a lie straight from the depths of hell. Because I can't do what my wife does. I can't be a mother. Yesterday, our 17-year-old was getting ready for prom and she looked gorgeous. She had a dress on and a beautiful dress and looked like a grown up. You know how it is when you see the kids grow up and it freaks you out a little bit. And I was there. Her biological father was there and her mother was there. And there were things that her mother could do in ways that her mother could connect to the experience that me and her dad really could not connect to. We're there in a more protective capacity. We're the ones who, well, this is just how we are. We were sort of saying, hey, do you got a cell phone charger? You got money in your pocket? Be careful out there. You got a coat, right? That was our energy. Her mother's energy was more of a mentorship, nurturing sort of energy that women can only give to other women. Her mother not being there would have been absolutely tragic because me and her dad, and we take pride. I love her. I love being a bonus dad to this little girl. She works for me. If you ever order my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, Nicole's the one who ships it to you. So when I sign the book and we ship it to you, which by the way, you can get these books if you want to go to drboycebooks.com. When it gets shipped to you, she's the one shipping it to you, and so she's been a real blessing to everybody, to me, and everyone that's in her life. But long story short, there are things that the fathers did that the mothers would have a harder time doing, things that the mother did that the fathers could not do. But we all come together. And I told him, I said, man, I talk about you all the time because I have so much respect for you, because I see a lot of fathers who are very immature, very jealous, petty, weak. I said, there's no weakness in this family. We're both financially responsible. We're both intelligent men. We're both mature. We're both working for the protection of the children, which is the most important thing. So my point is to say that the world ain't got to be ghetto unless you make it ghetto. Your situation ain't got to be a wreck unless you choose chaos. You can choose ghetto, you can choose reckless, you can choose to do what so many other people are doing, but you ain't got to choose that. That you control that, you decide that. So with that being said, circling back to Shedeur Sanders, I love Deion and his sons because they reflect values that show the benefits of fatherhood. And y'all, so we got to get off this stupid idea that fathers just aren't that important or that the kid's gonna be just fine with it. No, 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 no. That's just, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Moving on. Let's get back to the Shedeur thing. So right now, Shedeur is not, it literally, believe it or not, even though I really thought this kid was gonna get selected in the draft, like in the top 10. I thought he was, from a business standpoint, I was thinking, okay, he's a good player. He's getting mentored by his father, who understands NFL level expectations. They're going to sell a boatload of tickets, just like when he went to Colorado. Colorado has probably made a couple $100 million off of the Sanders family, and they paid him. They paid him back a little bit of that money. I wish that money had gone to an HBCU. I'm not gonna lie, but whatever, right? I get pushed. People get mad at me when I say that, but I'm saying. But what I say is that if you don't invest in your own institutions, then nobody will. You think the white man wants black institutions to grow? No, he wants you to stay a little kid. He wants you to stay on the sidelines. He wants you on the bench. So it's up to you to decide if you're going to get off the bench and play, or if you're going to keep on surrendering and submitting to white supremacy by aligning yourself with institutions that are pre-established, as opposed to building your own institutions. Now, with that said, a couple of things I wanted to actually throw in there in terms of the financial theory and the financial ideas behind what I believe might be happening to Shedeur Sanders. I personally think, as a sports fan, I am a football fan, I do believe the teams are going to regret not picking him. I think he has a great probability of having an awesome career. So I personally would not have passed him up unless there's something about him that I just don't know. I just didn't understand, to be honest with you. I don't think it's going to be a good business move or move in terms of winning. But with that said, though, something obviously happened that made people say, we don't want this guy around. Something happened, and it's not just race. A lot of people think it's racism. It can't just be racism, because damn near every player drafted in the first round was black, right? But at worst, what you could say is that when a black man shows up to apply for a job, they want to see him behave a certain way, right? They want to see the more humble black man, right? Yazza as opposed to the more confident black man. But sometimes confidence can spill into arrogance. Confidence and arrogance are two different things. I don't know if young people get that enough, because I think hip hop distorts what we consider to be confidence. Like, for example, Diddy was confident, but he was also very arrogant. He did a lot of talking, but he didn't do a lot of follow up. If y'all remember, he would talk about he would get on Twitter and say, "Hey, y'all, we're gonna go buy the Carolina Panthers," and he would get 100,000 likes, but then you wouldn't hear anything else happen after that. And that kind of speaks to whether a person is a man of substance or a man of talk. And hip hop, unfortunately, is all about yapping. Whoever yaps the loudest is going to get the most attention and make the most money. So that hip hop culture, that whole yapping culture, like, let me pull out my chain, let me show you my chain, and show you my watch. I got a little chain. See, that's a lion. My wife has a lioness. Let me pull out my chain, and I won the game. I'm gonna show you my watch. See, I can't even, this watch probably costs $80. But I could do, and that's the thing, right? And that's what Shedeur Sanders would do after every game, is he would kind of engage in these antics that he probably learned from his father. They're excellent for marketing and getting attention. They're not so good for creating healthy partnerships with other people that you're supposed to be aligned with on a common mission, right? Like, they do really well for the cameras, but they don't do so well for your teammates. Do you understand? Right. And this is a debatable issue. There are some people who cheer it on. Like, yeah, why are you hating on him? He could do it. I get that. But the point of the matter is that if you read my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, one of the things I talk about extensively is that economics is a team sport. Just like football is a team sport. The quarterback cannot win a game without his wide receivers. He cannot win without his running backs. He cannot win without his offensive linemen. And so in some cases, and you've seen this happen a lot, where one person's arrogance or one person's desire to suck up all the sunlight can create animosity within the team that causes the other teammates to say, "Hey, man, come on, man, this ain't all about you." Right. And maybe that's not his intention. Maybe his intention is to just say, "Hey, I'm just trying to know my worth. I know my worth. I know my worth." But one of the things that's interesting is that despite the fact that hip hop teaches young black men to be the loudest in the room, the strongest men in the room are typically the ones who have what you might call quiet confidence. The most capable individuals in the room are not all are typically usually not the loudest because they don't have to tell you how great they are. They're going to show you how great they are. Oh, but they're going to talk louder than you. The difference is that some people talk with their mouths, other people talk with their actions. Tell me if you know a man like this or a woman like this. Tell me if you know somebody who ain't gonna run up here and run up in your face and show their watch and show their car and show their big house and all that, but they're gonna show you who they are. They're gonna show you, oh, you think I'm just average. Oh, let me show you how great I am. Let me show you how good I am at what I do. See, and this is an important concept in terms of wealth because for two reasons. One, because when you're just a big mouth, some people don't like all that. Some people are like, man, just shut up. Like, stop talking about yourself. This is a team. There is no Michael Jordan. And here's the thing: sometimes they end up still being great. Like when Michael Jordan was young, I think they said something like, "There's no I in team," and he said, "Yeah, but there's an I in win." And some people might say, "Oh, he flexing on them. That's a great." But here's the deal: back at that time, Michael Jordan could not win championships. Michael Jordan was dunking on everybody. He was at the peak of his athletic ability. He had a 45-inch vertical leap or something, and he was scoring 30 points a game, and he could not win championships. He couldn't. He didn't really start winning championships until he really knew what was required to become a great teammate. So wealth is the same way. When you talk about family wealth, um, being a great teammate is what makes you successful, not being a superstar. It's the group collective effort that builds power and wealth in America, not the individual who's standing on the mountain all by himself. And apparently these teams, all of whom are very hungry for a great quarterback, all of whom are very desperate to find a way to win games, all of whom care deeply about the bottom line and winning and getting to the Super Bowl, they all sat there and said, that's not our cup of tea. That's not like, I mean, maybe it was petty. Maybe it was like, well, we don't like your dad. But I just, that's just kind of weird because they liked his dad when his dad played 30 years ago. His dad was liked by a lot of people. He was liked by the Cowboys. He was liked by the 49ers. He was liked by the Atlanta Falcons. Right. So what's happened is that with the Shedeur thing, I don't think people understand the wealth angle that building wealth and building empires, it does require tremendous amounts of confidence. You have to convince yourself that you're worthy and that you're capable, and you have to be willing to fight every day, 100%. But it also requires you to understand that you've got teammates in this process. You need teammates, and you need your teammates to feel as empowered as you. The second wealth angle on Shedeur that I would love to, that I wish I could advise him on, is flashiness will get you attention. It will get you high TV ratings. It'll probably even get you some endorsement deals because the world loves flashy Negroes. They love, Kanye West. I had the hardest time getting on the phone with Kanye West, who literally on the phone, I kid you not, Kanye literally told me that he was the most important person on earth next to Vladimir Putin. Well, if you're sitting there telling me this and it's just us on the phone, I'm like, okay, it's the CIA listening. Maybe they're listening. Maybe you want them to know this because I don't give a shit. I don't care. Why are you telling me this? That did not make him feel like a good teammate. It's like, okay, I'm talking to you about the mission. I'm talking to you about the community. I'm talking to you about all the people that we're trying to help. And you're talking about yourself, sir. Is that really required? What is happening with your self-esteem that makes you feel the need to sit here on a private conversation and tell me that you're the most important person on earth next to Vladimir Putin? Not only do I disagree with you, but also I don't care. Like that is completely orthogonal in mathematics. Orthogonality means it ain't got shit to do with what's going on the ground. It is completely orthogonal to the conversation that we're having in this moment. All it did was get on my nerves and let me know that I'm wasting my time because I was already warned by someone else who worked with you not to talk to you. So what are we doing here? So here's the deal. I'm gonna tell you like this. This is what I'm gonna tell you, and this is what's gonna make a lot of young guys mad. Hip hop culture has ruined the black male in a million different ways. Hip hop culture has really accelerated this idea of being the lead narcissist as a pathway to success. Hip hop does not, most of the time, not every time, but most of the time, hip hop does not create collaborative energy that leads to wealth and empire building. Hip hop creates competitive energy, where my goal when I get with a group of allies is not to coordinate with the allies to fight a common objective. It's not to work together to become great together. It's not to build something that's lasting and sustainable and powerful. It's to show you that I'm the alpha and you're the beta. I'm better than you. Look at my watch. Look at my chain, dog. Look at my gold, man. Look at me out here shining, player. Like, shut up. You sound crazy right now. Nobody need to hear all that. Not your teammates. You want your teammate next to you to be shining. You want to congratulate your offensive lineman for being a great superstar. You want to go to the press conference and say, God, without my teammates, I could never have gotten this done. I just want to say thank you. And to the fans, I want to say thank you. See, you elevate yourself by elevating others. That is an economic concept referred to as reciprocity. To build an economic system of power, you must have reciprocity. That means I'm pouring into me by pouring into you. Some people think I'm gonna pour into me by pouring into me. No, that's called selfishness. That doesn't build wealth. That builds distrust. That creates a scenario where for every man for himself. Anybody who's ever played basketball would know, for example, if you have five guys on a team where everybody's thinking, well, how many shots am I going to get to take? And nobody's passing the ball, that team is not going to win. The team that wins is the team that says, well, I'm going to get the ball to the open man so that he can get the best shot. And I know he's going to do the same. He's going to reciprocate reciprocity. He's going to follow through. It's going to be a boomerang where I give him the ball. So when I'm open, he's going to give me the ball. So the best way for me to get the ball is not for me to keep the ball. The best way for me to get the ball is to pass it. Do you understand? And this does not just apply in sports. This applies in relationships. The best way to be loved is to give love. If you're too scared to give love, then you ain't never going to really get it. Maybe you'll get it from yourself and that's going to be it. You're going to end up on an island all by yourself, trying to figure it out all by yourself because you don't understand the language of reciprocity. You pick good teammates that are going to reciprocate with you, and then you play the game of reciprocation by pouring into them so that you can make yourself great. It's okay to want to be great. It's okay to be confident. I'm very confident. I know that in my mind, I'm sorry. I'm kind of like the Michael Jordan of finance. I don't say this very much, but I'm damn good at what I do. My having a doctorate means you're not intimidated by anything intellectual related to the economic stuff. I don't know everything, but I'm not. Nothing slows me down. Nothing. I fear nothing. Damn. I can't think of anything that I fear. I don't even fear death. But that doesn't mean I have to tell people all the time. And it also means I have to understand what teamwork looks like. I have to understand that when I come talk to you, my goal is to pour into me by pouring into you. I pour into you, you pour right back. So the more I help make you great, the more you'll help make me great. And we all get to be great together. That is so much different than me sitting up here and saying, look at me, look at how much better I am than you. Look at how much. Have y'all seen my car I just got? Oh, which car what kind of car you driving? You ain't driving what I'm driving. What the hell? That's horrible energy. Nobody wants a family member like that. Nobody wants a business partner like that. Nobody wants to be in a relationship with someone like that. No one wants to do business with someone like that. No one wants someone like that on their team. So I'm not saying that Shedeur carries that all the time. I think he's got an amazing work ethic. He's got a lot of talent. His father, I think, has great mentorship capability. I truly believe he's going to be a really good player. But I understand why teams would say this is a guy who may not understand that the team is bigger than him. Right. And this happens in family. This happens in family. It happens in business. It happens in wealth. Families break up when individuals forget that the family is bigger than you. You're pouring into something bigger than yourself. If you can't pour into something bigger than yourself, then you'll probably never be really successful or powerful. One of the first things they teach in China, which has become one of the great economic powers of the earth, is they teach their children that, yeah, you're important, but you're not the only person here. Yeah, you're amazing, but this ain't about you. This is about the collective. So what happens in China, believe it or not, is I learned this when I taught finance in China. they don't they if you are the loud, flashy one and telling everybody how great you are, they kind of laugh at you. They kind of they like they admire black athletes for our amazing athletic ability, but they kind of look at us. They look at hip hop culture as clown culture. That's why they actually in China. A lot of y'all, how many of y'all know this? In China, they actually banned people, celebrities going on TV bragging about how much money they have. Did y'all know that? They were like, "Stop doing that. You're a child." Right. And so here's another economic part of this that I forgot to mention earlier. One of the other things, just on a personal note, if you ever get a lot of wealth, don't be flashy about it. If you become flashy about it, then you become a target. You become a target of people that might want to rob you. You become a target of people that might want to scam you. You become a target of people that have sob stories where they want to get your money from you. You become a target of people that want to get you into crappy business deals. You become a target of low quality women, like, say, I don't know, 21-year-old OnlyFans models who want to record your phone conversation so they can extort you for 10 million or $20 million. I don't know where that reference comes from. So ultimately, when you are flashy, when you say things like, I don't date my age, I date my wage. I date my wage. You can't lead wage first. You do that, then what's going to happen is people are going to want to eat whatever you put on the menu. People are going to eat whatever you put on the menu. So if I come out here and I say, "Hey, you should date me because look at how much money I got. Look at what kind of car I drive. Girl, I could buy you anything." Well, then you're going to attract women who are going to want that. They're going to say, "Okay, thank you. I saw what you were advertising on the menu. When do we eat, sir?" And same thing is true with women. When you lead with sexuality, when somebody said it in a really great way, she said, if you lead with thighs and breasts and leg, then people are going to want to go to KFC. They're gonna want to eat, right? So you can have the thighs, the breast, and the leg, and it can make things easier for you in terms of getting attention. But all attention ain't good attention. All attention is not good attention. And Michael Roberts, who is a very wealthy man who's come on this platform, I got to bring Michael in. I love Michael. He texts me. I got to reach back out to him. But he's a really smart guy. Him and his brother were on CNN for being two black billionaires, and they run over $1 billion worth of companies. Anyway, Mike Roberts said something really profound when I interviewed him. He said, "Rich people are loud, but wealthy people whisper." Rich people are loud. They want you to know how rich they are. Wealthy people are like, no, I ain't got no money over here. That's a person whose ego is intact. So really, I think as much as it's entertaining to see people that are loud and audacious and flashy, I think from a practical standpoint, that doesn't typically work when it comes down to forming partnerships, healthy partnerships with other people. Nobody wants to date a narcissist. Nobody wants to do business with a narcissist. Nobody wants to build a family with a narcissist because by definition, the fact that you believe that you are more important than everything happening around you is going to make you a difficult person to deal with. This happens a lot in Hollywood. I was around, I went to LA a few times. I met some people that were really big. Because especially when I was hanging out with Dame Dash, we would just no one no telling who would just walk in or whatever. And one thing that I think was interesting was I saw people that were really famous and very good at what they did, but they didn't understand why nobody would work with them. And what they don't understand is that there's a whole economic theory around how whether or not you can work with a person and whether or not you like their personality, humility wise, and all that plays a big part in whether or not they get economic opportunity. So it ain't just about talent; it really is about personality. And so, but I want to say this without being overly critical of Shedeur, who's really young. He's 21, 22 years old. He's going to learn a lot. And I'm going to tell you the truth. When I was 21, 22, I was probably cockier than I am now. I know I was much cockier. And I think the cockiness was based on like feeling the need to prove myself, right? I felt like people didn't believe in me. So I had to tell you what I was and all that. And you grow out of that eventually. That's just a maturity thing. But yeah, when I came out of college, I was the number one draft pick. I was the number one finance student in the entire all of University of Kentucky. And I had all these things I was trying to prove. And sometimes that testosterone kicks in and you want everybody, you walk around with your chest out, and then I think as you mature, you learn not to do that. And it's really older men whose job it is to tone that down a little bit. And that's what I kind of wonder about in terms of the dynamic, like how much Coach Prime might be actually making this experience a teachable moment as opposed to it being like, okay, the whole world hates us because we're amazing. Like, I don't think that that's what it is. I think the world loves them because they're amazing. So anyway, one thing I want to mention really quick is later on today, Lene Javette is hosting the Black Power Her conference, and it's going to have just lots and lots of people, lots of amazing women that are going to be teaching all different things related to finance, economics, and wealth. They do this once a year. It's virtual. So if you go to blackpowerher.com, POWHER, blackpowerher.com, use the code word Dr. Boyce, all one word, and you can get a big discount. I think she takes off 60% from the ticket price. So you can get them for like $49. And I think that they let you have everything like afterward and stuff like that. That part I'm not sure about. You got to check that. But you can go to blackpowerher.com. They start actually this morning if you want to go take a look at that. And also, again, we have these new flashcards for stock options flashcards for kids. And I just got the first batch. They look amazing. I'll let you guys will get the first dibs to order them. We only have a couple hundred packs, so they're going to sell out super fast. So I'm only going to offer it to you guys, and I'll send you guys a text if you want to teach stock options to your kids. I believe stock options is one of the most important financial concepts you can teach your kid. If you want your kid to really get ahead in the world and they understand stock options, they're going to be far better off than about 95% of the population. So, and we were doing options last night. A lot of you were there. We probably spent over 2 hours just going through a lot of different strategies and stuff. So feel free to take a look at that. And we have a mini class that you can get for free actually right now if you want to do a wealth elevation session. I think they're giving away the stock options mini class to people who want to come to that. So if you want to sign up for that, you can go to drboycecoin.com, drboycecoin.com, set up a wealth elevation session. They'll give you free access to the mini class and I guess talk to you about what you're doing economically and stuff like that. So Dr. Boyce Coin, COIN. All right. So let's talk about a few financial theories that relate to the Shedeur thing. And then I also want to talk about the NFL. One of the things that really burns me up is I just don't understand why we just love begging so much. It bothers me that we just feel like white people are some sort of economic god, and that we have to always be responsive to whatever they think about us. And that's one thing that just irks me. And why do I say that? Well, because I hear a lot of people that will complain about the mistreatment of Shedeur Sanders or Kyrie Irving or anybody, but that energy that's spent complaining about what other people are doing with the league that they own, that same energy could also be applied into building a league, into having a league of our own. I don't know why that's not the rallying cry. All the energy you spend complaining about somebody else's system could be taken and applied to building a system of your own. The only difference is that it takes vision, it takes patience, it takes real substance, it requires real work, not just loudmouth, flashy people. And that's why, for example, rappers and entertainers are not the best people to lean on to build the Black community, because you've had 50 years of hip hop and you haven't had one Black-owned hospital. They haven't built one Black-owned automobile manufacturer. They haven't built one Black-owned school system. They ain't building nothing. All they're doing is doing a lot of talking. And so what I'm going to do actually is explain to you how the NFL became what it is today. How they literally had far less than what we have, but they built this amazing $100 billion sports league. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But let me mention a couple of theories that relate to what Shedeur might be dealing with. There's actually research. There's a paper by Malmendier and Tate in 2005 that talks about overconfidence with CEOs. And they said overconfident leaders often make poor investment decisions and destroy value. So basically, one thing that Shedeur might be doing, if he's not careful, is when you come in as the 21-year-old who kind of feels like you know everything and you know your whole destiny, and you know how great you're going to be. That on one hand, that confidence can be admired, but on the other hand, it might make people think that maybe you're not coachable or that you're going to make risky decisions because you have overconfidence. Investment overconfidence, believe it or not, is a massive theory in the research. One of my dissertation committee members, his name was David Hirschleifer. He's a very nice guy and he was very humble, but he was an absolute beast. I mean, in terms of respect, everywhere he went, everyone admired him. He was world renowned. He could go to almost any university he wanted, but you would never guess that by talking to him. He's a very humble person because he's like, why do I have to be arrogant? I'm just going to be great. And so anyway, he would write about investor overconfidence. And one of the things, and we've talked about this in terms of investing in the stock market, overconfident investors tend to take risk that they don't have to take. They tend to do things, they make bad decisions in many cases. So for example, when the stock market is doing really well, one of the things I always jump in and tell you guys is I say, hey, chill out, relax, let's sober up a little bit, because right now you're high on that dopamine and you're feeling cocky, and you're going to keep on pushing and buying and making moves without considering the fact that all this can go away overnight. So when I see first thing, whenever we have a great day, I'll say, "Woo! How great is this? Look at how much money we made." But then I'll say, "Okay, let's calm down and let's take a breather and protect ourselves." Right? You have to bring the humility back. Humility is okay. There's nothing wrong with being humble. That doesn't mean you can't be great. So basically, a lot of research says that overconfident people make bad decisions. So for a football player, that might translate to because I'm overconfident, I'm going to just wing the ball down the field because I'm super confident that I can make this hairpin pass. And then I end up throwing an interception. I end up ruining the game because I'm taking all these chances because I believe that I can kind of do anything. Also, there's another theory by a guy named Becker. I actually met him. He's from University of Chicago, and he wrote a paper about human capital in terms of business. And so one conclusion of his paper is that the earnings, the amount of money you make, isn't just based on your raw ability. It's also based on other traits, non-financial traits, like what is your adaptability? How well do you communicate? My friend Al Duncan might call these soft skills. A lot of young people, y'all got to work on that. You got to go be intentional, get some specialized training on soft skills. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, from my generation, the pandemic really hit you hard, and a lot of y'all suck when it comes to just basic social skills, basic communication stuff like that. I'm not making fun of you, but relative to my generation, a lot of people in my generation are looking at the Gen Zers and they're like, "What the hell's wrong with?" Like they have classes now where they're teaching them how to make a phone call. I kid you not, it's crazy. I was like, they can't call no, they don't know how to make a phone call. But I'm not making fun of you. I'm telling you that is a deficiency that you want to be intentional about fixing if you want to be ready. So warn your sons and your daughters and your grandkids, like, these soft skills are critically important. Never let them believe that it's all about how talented you are, all about how great your resume is. And this is another thing Black people have to learn, is that you might have the same resume as the white boy, but that don't make you a white boy. You're still Black. As soon as you walk in the office, they're going to know that you're Black, and that's going to affect whether or not they're going to want you in their organization. This is the reality of racism. My wife has a great grandfather who was this brilliant man who wanted to go to medical school, and he applied to the University of Chicago. They loved his application. They accepted him. They're like, "We can't wait till you get here." Somebody forgot to ask him, what race are you? So he gets to the interview, and they're like, "Oh shit!" so they told him, "We're sorry, we can't let you into medical school because the other students won't accept you." And he ended up becoming a chemist, and he became one of the best chemists in the country. And he turned lemons into lemonade. He had a great career, and he bought these savings bonds in the 1940s for his family, and he bought this building in the south side of Chicago. And so 80 years later, his great great granddaughter is living in the building, and she never has to pay rent for the rest of her life because he bought this building for her way back in the 1940s, or bought it for the family, not just for her. And then also, when my wife made her first down payment on her first home, she was able to use that money that he invested in the 1940s. I may be telling the story wrong. I got to ask my wife for all the specifics, but she was able to use that money to be able to become a homeowner, which accelerated her ability to build wealth. My wife did not marry me because I had money. She already had money. So I don't know. Maybe she made that mistake for some other reason, but but it wasn't the money, and that was actually kind of, we laughed about that because the internet's assumption was, oh, you trying to hook up with a millionaire so you can get ahead. And what that assumption was based on is this limiting belief that the only way you can get money is if you find somebody that already has it and connect yourself to that person. Right? That's a limiting belief. The limiting assumption is that, oh, you're a Black woman. Of course you're broke. Of course you're struggling financially. Of course you're going to pick a man based on whether or not he can elevate your life. They know it never crossed their mind. And this speaks to culture. This is something we got to address as a community. It never came to mind that maybe she had a great great grandparent in the 1940s who made some investments for the family to make sure that the kids and the grandkids are good. Why is that such a strange assumption when it comes to the Black community? Why is that so hard to believe? Why would that be rare? It's not hard to do. All of y'all in here, about 95% of y'all in here are going to be, if you're not already, you're going to be somebody's grandparent. 95% of y'all in here. And every one of y'all in here, every one of you knows how to go buy a share of stock. Ain't no whites only sign on the stock market. There's nothing about being Black that says you can't invest except for the culture, except for the false culture, the culture that they market to you. They want to market broke culture to you. They want to market broken culture to you. They want you to assume that being Black means you ain't got no family, you can't read, write, or do math, you don't know nothing about business. Everybody knows how to twerk and play football, but don't nobody know how to invest and start businesses and raise kids properly. That's what they put on you. They dump the slave culture on us like a big bowl of toxic waste. It's a it's like a big, gigantic, just a big, gigantic tank full of garbage and mold and nasty stuff. And they just pour it on top of us, and then we're swimming in it, just eating it like, oh, this is the culture. This is Black culture. Trauma. Give me some more trauma. Give me some more dysfunction. Let me go catch an STD. Like, that's what they do. They get you eating up what you call the culture. That ain't no damn culture. That's called propaganda, man. That's a psyop. That's a CIA operation. That's what that is. That's slavery. That ain't nothing about that. That ain't none of that culture. It ain't no Jewish man that thinks that broken families, sexually transmitted diseases, traumatized children, and financial dysfunction. Not one Jewish man on the planet sees that as culture. We got to find another word for it, but it ain't culture. So anyway, let me keep going here. There's also something called signaling theory. I remember those papers too, written by a guy named Spence. And basically, there are signals that employers use to determine not just whether or not you can contribute to the team, but also what you're going to contribute in terms of what they call externalities. What are the other things that you're bringing to the table, or good or bad, that are going to impact your ability to do the job? One of the challenges I believe Shedeur Sanders might be running into is everybody sees his big Black daddy, Deion, this oversized figure who's very, very popular, very well known. He's very, very wealthy. That's a different dynamic in terms of an employer-employee relationship than what they're probably used to. They're typically used to young Black men who don't have any education, or have little education because they were kind of pushed through school because that's what they do with the athletes or whatever. And also they have a struggling poor family that's really hungry. They're used to that. They're not used to, say, a Bronny James, who's got his father and a legacy that's already done well for him. So he doesn't actually need you. They're not used to Shedeur, who was mentored heavily by his father to be the man that he is. They're not used to people like Dr. Myron Rolle, who wanted to be a surgeon as badly as he wanted to be a football player. They don't understand that. So to some extent, I can see where that would be a problem in one of his interviews, because they're like, well, what do we do with this? He's kind of an experiment. Like, we've never had a Negro like this before. We've been owning Negroes since the 1920s, but we don't know what to deal with this. We're not sure what to do with you, right? So that's the racism. Yes, it is. At the same time, these in economics, they call these externalities, this sort of off the field stuff. They're thinking about this because they're wondering, how is this going to affect the team? A lot of NFL teams don't like disruptions in the locker room. They don't like things that are going to throw off the commitment to the core mission. They will get rid of their star player if he is too disruptive of the team. There's guys like Antonio Brown, who was arguably one of the top 3 or 4 wide receivers in the whole NFL, and nobody wanted him. Nobody signed it. The teams tried, they're like, oh, come on down. That would be great to have you if we can sort of work something out. And he just, I think this is where the brain damage probably kicked in. I think a lot of NFL players have brain damage, and we don't talk about that enough. We don't talk about the fact that the CTE studies, the one I saw, I could have sworn they said that 99% of them have some sort of brain damage, because you're not even supposed to take a couple of those hits to the head, but they're taking those hits to the head all the time. And it's really, it creates bizarre behavior sometimes. Like when the player Kellen Winslow Jr. got arrested because he was literally sexually assaulting like 80-year-old women. Not to say that activity is ever acceptable, but you people are like, what, 80-year-old women? That just seems there's something off mentally, clearly, right? Or Aaron Hernandez, who played for the New England Patriots, and he was after he won the Super Bowl, he was murdering people. They're like, why would you win a Super Bowl and then go kill somebody? Well, if something's wrong with your brain, you might. And I think that when they studied his brain after he killed himself, they found all kinds of significant damage to that brain. And so this, and you think about this, here's another point people don't talk about this. Shannon Sharp played the same position as Kellen Winslow Jr. Shannon Sharp played the same position as Aaron Hernandez. And so when I see some of the illogical decision making by Shannon Sharp, I connect that to the brain damage, but also particularly the part of the brain that gets damaged the most. It's the front. If I'm not a brain surgeon, I'm not a brain expert, so forgive me if I say something wrong. But I believe it's the prefrontal cortex, this part of your brain that's in the front of your head that allows you to make long-term logical strategic decisions. Not to say you're incapable of doing that, but your impulse control, they say, is affected. So if you have that brain damage and you blend something like alcohol, I thought this all crossed my brain when I saw the text message from that little kid he was sleeping with, the little OnlyFans model, where they were talking about something that happened on New Year's Eve, where she said, "I told you to put the condom on. I told you not to do da da da." You did it, and I don't know if he did it or not. I'm not assuming he did, but he responded like, "Hey, can I call you?" Right? He didn't say, why are you accusing me of this? I would never do such a thing. He didn't say that. He said, "Can I call you?" Which is kind of an interesting response, right? But I really thought about that. I said, what happens when a person with brain damage is drinking alcohol? They're probably not, which already takes away a lot of your impulse control. Anything can happen. So if you ever want to know why I don't drink, it's because it's like, well, if I do something stupid, I want to be able to take full responsibility for the dumb thing I did. Like if I do so, I told my wife, I said, if I do something crazy one day and ruin my life, I want to be able to fully explain the thought process how I premeditated how I was going to destroy my life. I don't want it to be like I got drunk at the club and somebody stepped on my shoe, so I pulled out the strap and shot him. That's a ghetto, that's a boondock story. I don't want that's not going to be my story. My story will be, well, I meticulously plotted the homicide over 3 years by carefully watching his actions to see when he would come and go. And then I hired a private detective to give me his whereabouts. Right? I want to be sister. I mean, really, if you're gonna go do something stupid, be intelligent about it. Just be intelligent about your stupid behavior. Don't just be like, man, it just got popping up in there, man. I just decided I was going to. Come on, man. Seriously, you're ruining your life. You have to have some self-esteem about self-destruction. And so anyway, so with that said, though, moving on with that, here's the other part of that. So let's go back to Shedeur, because we were talking about Shedeur and we're going to talk about players and brain damage, but you'll know how I get. All right. So here's another theory. This relates to what they call social capital and business partnerships. You keep this in mind because this does apply to you. Coleman in '88 wrote a paper about social capital called Social Capital in the Creation of Human Capital. And here's what they found, that social connections create real economic advantages, allowing individuals to access opportunities and resources. So what does that mean? That means that you need to listen to people like Dr. George C. Frazier, who is the world's leading expert on networking. He's come up in here. He wrote a great book called Success Runs in Our Race. George C. Frazier teaches you that one great way to build wealth is to learn how to not be an asshole, how to be helpful to people, how to actually listen to people instead of telling them how great you are or how amazing you are. And so one of the things that I wonder with Shedeur is I wonder if he was passed over in the draft because people said, you're not going to fit with our team. There's 60 other teammates or something, 50 other teammates, however many people on an NFL team. There's 40, 50, 60 other people besides you. And then there's a whole organization outside of that makes this thing go. And if you come in thinking that you're the sun and that everybody else is a planet, then we don't know how that's going to really work. We don't know how that's going to feel. So in my view, I wonder if being confident without necessarily having to be cocky is a better strategy, right? You have to be confident. I believe every NFL player is confident. You got to be confident to go out there and face up against 350-pound guys that run a 4.5 in the 40-yard dash and can bench press 500 pounds. Like, you got to be very confident to be an NFL player. So every player is confident, every one of them. Hats off to there's probably some athletes up in here. I know some former athletes. Hats off to all of y'all, because I couldn't even make I couldn't make I tried to make the basketball team, but I was too short. They invited me to try for the football team because I was faster. I was actually faster than every player on the team. I raced the fastest players on the team. They came out for track because they were trying to get fast. And so, but I was captain of the track team. So that was like my territory. So I was kind of mad. So we raced and I beat every single one of those suckers. So I was okay. I was a decent athlete, but I was not anywhere near the caliber of athlete that you have to be an NFL player. So most of those guys are extremely confident. So so being loud and confident, there's nothing unique about that. It just makes people say, well, why do you have to be loud about it? Why aren't you talking with your play instead of talking so much with your mouth? I don't think people on a team, whether it's in business or in sports, really enjoy the guy who's kind of the cockiest, loudest in the room, especially if he's in a leadership position. A quarterback is a leader. His quarterback is like a CEO of the team, kind of, or the on the field CEO. And one thing about being a CEO, this is something for everybody. Let me ask y'all this question: how many of y'all want to be a boss one day, or how many of y'all are a boss? Some of y'all are already bossing. Some of y'all are bossed up to the max. How many of you plan to be a boss? How many of you want your kids to be bosses? Right? Bosses meaning like you're controlling your own destiny, you're leading a team, you're delegating, your children are telling others what to do and guiding an organization. How many of y'all, and I hope everybody says yes, because this is what we need. We need more bosses in the community. I'm tired of being the white man's sidekick. To hell with him. God bless him. Good for him. He got what he got. I want to get what we gonna get. Okay. So if you're going to be a boss, one of the things that I've learned about being a boss, and I've learned this the hard way, is that you cannot assume that it's all just going to come naturally. To be a boss, the head of a team, or the leader of an organization, or even the boss of a family, you have to, there's specific skills you have to acquire that come into managing the human beings around you. You know, really, if you're the boss, in fact, I had a conversation, with someone who I respect, who's always been a boss his whole life. And actually, I use the word boss, but actually let me refine that statement a little bit. I said to him, I said, your whole life you've always been the boss. I said, but really what I need you to do is stop always being the boss and start being a leader. A boss and a leader are two different things. Right. So I said, how many of you want to be a boss? And but actually I should have really asked how many of you want to be a leader? Because boss is, not everybody likes the boss. People maybe they might sabotage the boss. They might try to undermine the boss or abandon the boss if he's too bossy. Right. If a person is bossy, like if a woman or a man is bossy in their household and you're bossing around your partner, bossing around the kids, disrespecting other people, dismissing how they feel, not considering other points of view, then eventually your family is going to abandon you. They're going to walk away. Your teammates are not going to want to be teammates with you. They're going to hate you. But if you're a leader, then that means you still have boss-like capabilities. And in fact, you might have more power than the boss because you're getting true respect from other people. Like my father talked about Vietnam a lot, where he said that sometimes you'd have a college boy that would come over and they would make him like some sort of commander because he has a college degree. And so they would put him in charge of this platoon full of hardened soldiers who didn't go to college, and they're like, well, why is this sucker the leader? Like he ain't earned our respect. And he said in many cases that guy would go out in the field and somebody would shoot him in the back of the head. Because just because somebody puts you in a position of leadership doesn't really mean that you actually have earned the right to lead. So leadership is an acquired skill. I have not mastered it. I have not mastered it, but I respect it and I value it tremendously because leadership is required in our community. Because pay attention now, as Black people, you have no leadership in your community, not on a national level. Most of these people they call Black leaders are just propped up Negroes they put on TV. They prop them up, give them a bunch of money, and they say, here, follow this guy. Follow that lady right there. She's ghetto just like you, or he's loud just like you. And so of course, you should follow him. He's clearly the leader because look how loud he is. And look at this rapper. He's standing on stage holding his testicles, calling himself the N-word. You should all be following him. No. Leadership is a skill that's cultivated, and I believe that leadership is something you should study if you're ever gonna, like, I don't know, have kids. Because when it comes to your kids, how many parents? Anybody a parent in here? Any parents or grandparents? I want you to think about how children look at you when they come into this world. Your mama. Oh, there's mama. I'm gonna follow her. That's my leader. Oh, there's dad. Oh, daddy's my leader. He's my mentor. I'm gonna learn from him. So you're a natural leader. If you're a parent, you're a leader. Some of you are leading on your jobs. Some of you are trying to lead your own lives. Some of you are you might be with a woman that wants you to lead a little bit. You might be with a man who needs your feminine leadership as well, right? I think leadership is a not just important, but it's an acquired skill that you should actually read a book about. I read this book called Traction. It's called Traction, and it taught me about how to delegate, how to set team goals, how to lead in a certain way, and also everybody on my team, we all took a personality test. I think it's called Briggs Myers, and basically everybody they break personality types into 16 categories, and by learning what category I was in, I gained knowledge of self. And then I also looked at my team members to see what category they were in. And then they even tell you, it's really good science. They tell you how to approach that person, how they view the world, how they're going to respond if you say this or if you say that, right? And also I learned another thing about being a leader, which means that it's hard to be a leader if you can't be a follower on some level. And that the best question a leader can ask is, what do you think? Right? Like I value your opinion. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And then what that's what I do. I'll meet with my team and I'll ask everybody what they think. And then I make the decision because I still get to be Dr. Boyce. So me acknowledging and filling the cup of other individuals in my organization does not in any way diminish my role as the leader. I don't have to beat them down to remind them that I matter. In fact, I matter more because people tend to appreciate those who empower them. Like my wife gives me more respect because I give her respect. And but it's not easy. It takes practice, and it doesn't work for everybody. Right? So even part of leadership might be being very conscious about choosing who is even in your space and in your circle. So keep that in mind as you build your business. And I think that with Shedeur, I wonder in terms of being a quarterback and a leader, I wonder how much his dad has talked to him about even little basic things like for example, here's one hard thing about being a leader or a quarterback leader is that you have to take responsibility even if it wasn't your fault, right? You might be really mad because your wide receiver didn't run the route correctly and that's why you didn't score the touchdown, or your lineman missed a block and that's why you got sacked, and you're pissed about it. You know what happened. But then the best leaders are the ones who say, I take full responsibility. It's my team. It's hard. It's hard because you're kind of like, you feel like, man, this is BS, man. He messed it up. But that's where maturity comes into play. Maturity means that you're just going to have to be strong enough to absorb it and know that everyone's going to make fun of you. Everyone's going to laugh at you. They're going to blame you, even though it wasn't your fault. And that's hard to do. That's really hard to do, right? It's hard enough to take responsibility when you were the one that messed up. It's really hard to take responsibility when somebody else on the team messed up. But what you're kind of doing is you're expressing leadership because you're considering the whole organization and the long-term impact of your words, and then you're handling it internally. So to some extent, a big part of leadership is protecting something, right? And this is one of the things I truly believe that they've tried to steal from the black male. When you see black men that don't want to take responsibility for a family, they don't want to take responsibility for a woman, they don't want to go acquire any new skills, they don't want to acquire any assets, they don't want to have anything. What that does is that is actually in contradiction to inherent masculinity, because most animals actually respond favorably and they give more respect to, and even the women give more respect to the males that actually have more territory, that control things, that protect things, right? So your ability to protect is a really important part of your masculinity. And I believe that in America's quest to keep the black man as a little boy, they want to keep him uneducated, they want to keep him distracted, they want to keep him addicted to pleasure seeking behaviors, they want to keep him at the little children's table while they sit up and they make grown man decisions. And this is something that I think black men have to fight against. And also this speaks into the next point I want to pour into with Shedeur, which is that it's time for the black male to commit to owning a black owned sports league. There is absolutely no reason why black men should not in this generation be building some entity that they are creating that will become as great as the NFL in 40, 50, 60 years. And this requires vision. It requires commitment and sacrifice. It requires a lot of leadership qualities in the sense that you are committed to something bigger than yourself, something that you're not even going to benefit from directly, but you're committed to planting the seeds to prepare the stage for the next generation. Like the best father, the best grandfather, just like my wife's great grandfather, the best fathers and the best mothers are the ones who prepare a table for the children. So to point out where I know I'm right on this, I want you to look at how many black children go out into the world and they ain't got a damn thing. They don't have a nickel in their pocket, ain't got a resource to go to, ain't got a mentor to lean on, ain't got nobody there for protection. And they're out here trying to survive in this horrible racist world, this racist, sexist world, capitalist society. They're trying to survive, and ain't nobody laid the table for them. That's because there was no one in their family that was able to heal enough to be able to have vision, right? They couldn't, it was 1992, so they couldn't see 2022. They couldn't see it. They, in their mind, it was never going to happen. So I don't give a damn. Who cares? Who cares what happens to the kids? And I'm not. I don't even care. I'm not even thinking about it enough to even tell you that I don't care, because it's not even in my consciousness space. Like, it's not that I don't care. It's that I haven't even acknowledged the existence of the future. You understand? I'm not even imagining this 2-year-old as a 25-year-old, because I haven't even thought about it. I'm thinking about what's happening right now. I'm thinking about 1996. I'm not. So when somebody comes along and says, well, if you invest money right now in 1996, you'll have money by the year 2025. People would say, well, why do I care about 2025? That's never going to get here. That's not relevant. Right. But here we are, 2025. So what I would say to you is that the same thing is true when you talk about the year 2065. When I look at Shedeur Sanders, I don't see a 22-year-old football star. I see a 65-year-old NFL Hall of Famer who is looking back on his career in the year 2070. That's what I'm imagining. I imagine him at the, he walks up, he's on the cane, he's got gray hair, gray beard, and he can barely walk now. And he goes out there and they're giving him his medal or something, right? To acknowledge all the amazing things he did way, way, way back in the 2020s and the 2030s. That's what I visualize, right? And I do that. That's an exercise because it allows you to see the world looking backwards, so you'll know what you need to do right now. You'll understand what opportunities exist in front of you, instead of you sitting around saying, oh my God, everything's so expensive. It's so hard. It's hard to do that. You'll look back and say, oh my God, everything's so cheap, because that house that costs $1 million today is going to cost $10 million 15 years from now. So really the ability to do that is, I think, essential when you're talking about empire building, because then you start realizing what you're pouring into instead of only reacting to what's happening right now. So let me give you kind of the history of the NFL, just kind of decade by decade. Since we love to worship what white people have built, we don't honor what we can build ourselves. Let me give you some background on the NFL. Actually, before I do that, I want to remind everybody, if you want to be invited to class into the private Zoom, make sure you text the word morning to the number 87948. So get on your phone. You do it right now. Text the word morning to the number 87948. And we'll invite you to class. Or if you live in another country, you can go to drboyceelevate.com, drboyceelevate.com. And also, in case you don't know, my wife, Dr. Alicia Watkins, is a licensed therapist and a full professor of social work. And she helped us to create the first ever Black financial therapy department. And we're really proud of that, because no one else has ever done deep dive research into Black financial psychology, which is one of the reasons why Black wealth is continuing to drop. And she's almost done. She's doing a research paper that she's going to publish in an academic journal based on data that she collected from you guys on how trauma impacts economic decision making. So this is some of the work that's going on right now. So if you want to go see what Alicia's doing, and just you want to give mad props to my wife and all the smart women, Black women out there that support us, you can go to coachingwithdralicia.com, coachingwithdralicia.com. And she does a weekly relationship book club where they read books on healthy relationships. So if you want to have a healthy marriage, if you want to know what it means to raise children properly, stuff like that, text the word love to the phone number 87948, and you can get an invitation. So text love to 87948. Thank you for letting me share that with you. All right. So the NFL, let's talk about the NFL, and let's kind of go decade by decade. Right now, it's really fascinating to me how intimidated we are by this idea that Black men can have our own sports league. It makes no sense to me. We provide all the talent. We provide all the natural resources to make this thing go. But for whatever reason, we don't believe that we have the ability to develop the infrastructure required to run a professional sports league. Well, the first mistake that we make is that we compare the money that we would make to the money that they're making already, right? We look at their, $5-10 billion contracts, and we say we can't make that kind of money. So why would we try to make our own league? We might as well join up with them and allow ourselves to be kicked around, spit on, disrespected, and mistreated, all in exchange for us being able to take the shortcut and get borrowed power as opposed to real power. And so the truth of the matter, the interesting thing too, is that you see the effects of this all the time. When I saw what happened to Shedeur, I saw a lot of guys online complaining, saying, "Oh, they're just mad because they can't stand a confident black man. They don't like when black men show up and they got a little swag to them or whatever." And I'm like, no, well, that's their choice. You're asking to come into another man's house. And if he don't like you, he might not like you because you're wearing green shoes instead of brown shoes like he told you to. It's his house. If you're going in another man's house, you can't make no rules in another man's house. Whoever told you that? Who lied to you and told you that you can walk into an organization that's run by a whole nother community and they're going to treat you like you a relative? You ain't no damn relative. You're still a Negro. That's their league. They built this. The Hallis family owns the Chicago Bears, not you. Your family didn't. Your family wasn't shooting jumpers in the gym like they were. Your family wasn't sitting at the table in the 1920s planning on how they were going to build a sports league, or trying to get through the 1930s when the Depression caused all the teams to fold, or in the 1940s when damn near half the players had to go fight in the military. You weren't around for any of that. So stop acting like you're an owner. You're not an owner, son. You're an employee. We're hiring you to do a job. You're a hired gun. So the employee doesn't have the power of the boss. I can't go into any one of your houses. If I went into your house and I wanted to move the furniture around, you would look at me like I was crazy. So if I want to come in your house, I got to follow your rules. And this is just an economic reality. And for some reason, we don't always get that. So in the 1920s, the NFL, did y'all know that most NFL teams, you could have bought an NFL team for $100 in the 1920s? Did y'all know that? So they were started as mostly club teams in Canton, Ohio. In the 1930s, they went into survival mode. This is when they became raggedy little businesses. They weren't never going to amount to nothing. A lot of people would have gave up on the NFL in the 1930s because they had the Great Depression. The ticket sales collapsed at that time. Almost every year, teams were folding in the 1930s. If you had gone back to the 1930s, not that long ago, by the way, my grandmother was born in the 1930s. If you were to go to the 1930s and tell them and show them a mirror and say to them, "Hey, I'm from from 2025, and I just want you to know that one day you're going to sign, $10 billion contracts, and you're going to have teams worth $5 to $10 billion a piece." They would have looked at you like you were crazy. They wouldn't have even believed you if you told them the teams would be worth $1 million a piece. They wouldn't have even believed a million. If you start talking about billions, you would sound insane. They would say, "What are you talking? You're a liar. Put that man in an insane asylum." Because in the 1930s, the NFL businesses were as raggedy as some of the businesses that you have right now. More raggedy. In 1940s, though, so they've been at it for 20 years. And then World War II comes along, another problem, right? So a lot of players had to leave because they had to go in the military. So the NFL, that was when the NFL in survival mode still. They've been struggling for 20 years. Why would you continue to fight for a business that's been struggling for damn near 20 years? What's wrong with you? You got to be crazy. So they merged with the All-American Football Conference, the AAFC, in 1949, which absorbed teams like the Cleveland Browns. And in 1948, when television came along, they had the first NFL game aired on TV. It was very tiny. Nobody gave a damn, but it was historic in hindsight. Most power moves are historic in hindsight. Most power moves don't mean a lot in the moment. Like right now, us getting up every day, talking about economics, it ain't no big. It's just another day. Dr. Boyce, there he is right there. No, in my mind, I'm like, no, we don't know which of these moments is making Black history. We don't know I don't know which thing we did this month or this year that's going to be remembered for 100 years, but I know that there was something in there. So that's why everything that we do, I do it with intentionality, and I do it with all the energy that I have, because the future is watching. History is watching. Black history is watching this room right now. So let me keep going. 1960s, or sorry, let me go to 1950s. 1950s, that's when TV changed everything. See, that's another thing. This is why you can't give up on it. If you got a dream and a goal and something you're trying to build, you can't never give up, because you never know when that little catalyst will pop in that shifts everything. See, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. And remember, the word poor stands for what? Poor stands for, put it in the chat. POOR stands for what? Passing over opportunities repeatedly. That's what the word poor stands for. So a lot of times, the reason you pass over opportunities repeatedly is because you don't stick it out long enough to get to the good stuff. I really believe this to the core of my soul. God has a big blessing waiting for you, but it's gonna happen in year 6 or it's gonna happen in year 14, right? But a lot of us won't stick around past the first 6 months. This goes back to having a society that glorifies instant gratification. This is a society that doesn't really understand the nature of long-term, committed, devoted sacrifice, consistency, despite having some external validator to make you feel, to give you enough of a dopamine rush to keep going. You're leaning too much on motivation and not leaning on discipline. Motivation will light the spark. Discipline is what will keep the fire going. Motivation is the paper on the bonfire. Discipline is the wood. And if you know anything about starting a bonfire, you know it takes a long time to start the fire with wood, but the wood is what's going to keep the fire going. The paper is going to give you a big flare and then it's going to flame out. So we got to stop being made of paper and start being made of wood. Stop being flimsy and start being sturdy. Stop honoring flimsy Negroes on TV and start honoring the sturdy Black men and Black women in the community who've been doing the same damn thing repeatedly, consistently for the last 20 or 30 years. It's the sturdy people that you can build with. It's the sturdy ideas that you can build on top of. It is the sturdy effort, consistent effort that allows you to build the kind of structure. The Empire State Building was not built on land that was not sturdy. The Empire State Building was not built on a foundation that wasn't sturdy. You can't do that. It's not possible. So sturdiness is what we have to put into our kids. And unfortunately, this is my challenge with culture, with some of the culture that's pushed on us. It's not really culture. It's just a bunch of toxic waste and garbage and vomit that they throw on us. And they say, this is your culture. The culture really ain't sturdy. They ain't nothing sturdy. If you listen, even if you listen to hip hop music, hip hop and sports have always been linked. That's why rappers and athletes have always been close friends. You know, whether it's Jay-Z and LeBron, or if it's Mike Tyson and Tupac, or whatever, right? And no disrespect to any of them, they're great in their own right. But unfortunately, when you look at that culture, it's not always a super sturdy culture, right? It's like it's very anti-family. There's nothing there that says, I'm gonna rap today about how I'm gonna find me a great Black woman, love her, and have six kids and 20 grandkids. Right? There's nobody rap. No, there's nothing cool about that. But you rap about the sex. You rap about doing things that are going to get you sent to prison for 30 years. You rap about becoming a drug addict, which is going to make you a complete disappointment for your family. The most unsturdy men and women in the community are those that turn to drugs and alcohol, because what happens is they end up traumatizing their children through their behavior. So traumatized children have a hard time becoming sturdy people, because you have so much psychological harm that you're carrying around, so much pain you're carrying around, that the pain distracts you from your purpose. Right. So this is why healing is so important, because if the pain is what's causing you to make one decision after another, or focus on one short-term issue after another, focus on getting another dopamine hit to heal the pain, then it's very difficult for you to build anything long-term. So healing is really important. Healing will not only clear up the pain so you can focus, but it allows you, as you focus even more deeply and you start meditating, you gain your vision, you gain your consciousness. You start seeing the next 20 years, you start seeing the next 30 years, you see the next generation. And the more you see it, the more you can build it. And when God's giving you that vision and he's giving you that consciousness, you see it so clearly, you're like an artist that can just draw a perfect painting, because you see exactly what the damn thing's supposed to look like. So if you want to know what I focus on, what I try my best to focus on, is I try my best to focus on how to see. And it's not easy. Sometimes my vision gets blurry because of the things happening around me. But that's when I go in the room, meditate, shut my eyes, listen to my music, listen to some motivational stuff, look at some stories like this, with the NFL story, to understand, no, we got a bigger fish to fry. We got a bigger game to play here. Let's get focused. Let's focus on the team. Let's focus on the multi-generational impact. Let's focus on the big things, not the little big things popping, little things stopping. Let's really get past the people and the tiny issues and the little stuff, and let's look at the big thing that we're about to do over here. Okay, so let's keep going here. In the 1950s, TV changes everything. In 1951, they signed a $75,000 deal for broadcast rights. And that was blockbuster for them. They're like, oh my God, we got $75,000. It can't get any better than this. And so TV exposure, what that did was that meant that they had a new revenue model. They didn't just lean on ticket sales. They were able to get TV rights deals or whatever and make money from TV. That was huge. So at that time, check this out. But even then, do you know that the average NFL team was worth between $50,000 and $100,000? So if you had a group of investors, and again, I know race complicates everything, right? Because white folks always gonna be white. But if you had a group of investors in your family in the 1950s that had a little money, could pull together some capital, that had a long-term vision, they could have bought, the New York Giants and passed them down to you for maybe $60,000. You okay, babe? You're looking at me. She's oh, now the rabbit's got the gun. See, my wife, what my wife, I make fun of my wife because when she's doing her thing, I'll go in there and I'll just be staring at her because she's so pretty, right? Because she's the prettiest thing I ever saw, and she will get real distracted when I'm staring at her, and so now she's doing that to me, and I'm like, okay, now I get it, but I'm gonna show her, I'm gonna stay focused. All right, so then you go into the 1960s, and that's when you had the Vietnam War and you had the merger of the NFL and the AFL. So this created a lot of new teams that went to a lot of new cities. There were a lot of new opportunities. At this point in the 1960s, that's when players started making much more money. They started making like six figures, which was a big deal. And in 1966, the NFL and the AFL agreed to merge, creating the modern two-conference structure, I guess AFC and NFC. And they had their first Super Bowl in 1967. And what's really funny, if you ever want to see a funny video, watch the halftime show of the first Super Bowl in 1967. It is hilarious. It's like four like cheerleaders dressed as cowgirls, and they're doing like a corny little dance. And I think there might have been a mascot, like somebody with a horse head on or something. Like it was nothing like the Super Bowl halftime show now, right? Which you saw with Kendrick Lamar or even Michael Jackson, which is considered, I think, by some to be still the greatest ever. But it wasn't what what it is now. It was what it was back then. And the big thing to learn from these stories is to always remember that big things always come from little things. Big things start from little things. And so if you're so intimidated by the big thing that you don't create the little thing, then you never have the big thing. If you're not willing to feed and nurture the little thing, then the big thing will never grow from that. So when guys are intimidated about starting their own sports league because they don't think they can make even half the money the NFL makes, that doesn't make sense to me, because that's like a person saying, well, I can't have a baby because that baby is tiny compared to a grown man. Like, so somebody says, hey, you've got good genetics, you should have a couple of kids. They could probably play in the NBA. And they say, what are you talking about? A baby's only 10 pounds, 4 ounces. LeBron James is 275 pounds. He's 6'8". A baby is tiny compared to LeBron. But a person who understands biology knows, no, 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 no. What they're saying is your baby, if you feed it, is going to be as big as Shaquille O'Neal, but you have to give it time. You have to feed the damn baby. You got to keep the baby alive. You have to nurture the baby. You got to guide the baby. You got to manage the baby, because the baby could be the multi-billion-dollar asset that your family's been waiting for. Black children are an asset. They're not a liability. They're not just an expense. They only become a liability if you make them a liability. And part of my issue, part of my gripe with racism and white supremacy is that you take our assets and you turn them into little liabilities. You take a little boy who could have been anything, doctor, lawyer, engineer, business owner, and you turn him into a thug. You make him want to go out in the streets and act a fool. You make him want to become a threat and a danger to the community because you're pouring this toxic culture on this little boy from the time he's born. And this is a national emergency for the Black community. We did need to declare a state of emergency for the fact that millions of our kids are being ruined through a poor educational system. It's a state of emergency that millions of our kids are being introduced to toxic culture at an early age. It's a state of emergency that most of our children are not protected by two parents in the house that love them and keep them safe. If you don't do that, then you're going to keep missing opportunities. But your children are assets unless you allow the world to turn them into liabilities. So with the NFL, if guys started a league, it wouldn't make nearly as much money as the NFL, but it would be very easy to do. You just get LeBron and his 30 closest friends together. They form some sort of ownership group or whatever, and have some voting structure. Lawyers could help them set this up. And then what they do is they look for their allies, all these white people that make them wear those Black Lives Matter t-shirts. And they call them up, all these banks and everything, and they say, we need to raise $1 billion. And they raise the billion. They create a modest sports league that you don't compete with the NFL right away. You just all you got to be able to do is hold a basketball or football game, which is easy. We do that all around the country in every high school and middle school in America. You have to broadcast that game somehow, which you can do very easily because if you take LeBron and his 30 closest friends, they probably have over 2 billion followers on Instagram and YouTube. So if everybody agrees that they're going to broadcast the games on their social media platform, I'm going to show it. I got a million followers on Twitter. I'll show it on my Twitter. I don't have a million, but I got 200 and something thousand. I'll throw in my 200,000, but I'm not LeBron. He's probably got 10 million, right? So what? Those are the numbers. That's what drives the revenue of the NFL and the NBA is viewership numbers. The viewership numbers is that's why Amazon will write the $2 million check to do the Super Bowl ad and then also Coca-Cola and Walmart and all that. It's because they're looking at the numbers. They're like, well, how many people are gonna see this ad? Oh, okay, we'll give you $2 million for a 30-second spot. And then you sell a few hundred of those. Next thing you know, you have a Super Bowl. Right. So you have everything you need to make this work for the most part. You just have to have the vision. At that point, here's the other part. Here's the other part that's difficult. You need to stop paying attention to the flashy loudmouths of the world and start paying attention to the people who will quietly sit down and do the work. These are the people of substance, not flash. These are your sturdy people that you can build upon. So you take that billion, you spend a few hundred million, you're hiring your black attorneys, you're hiring your black marketers, you're hiring your black referees, you're hiring your black people that can set up the businesses that are going to benefit from the modern day version of what could be called the Negro Leagues. You wouldn't call it that, but that's what it is, right? And so you're building an ecosystem, but you need people that are willing to quietly do the work instead of people that are always loud and flashy and somehow think that that means something. And that league would probably in the first year be able to crack $100 million in revenue. Now, $100 million ain't nothing compared to the NFL. The NFL probably spends $100 million on. They damn near spend. They probably spend millions of dollars on toilet paper, right? So that you're not the NFL, you're not the NBA, but you're something, and you're black owned, which gives you an economic value that goes far greater than how much revenue you're making in that particular moment. You are in day one what the NFL wasn't until probably 50 years in. You could literally create a league right now. LeBron and his best friends could create a sports league that makes more money than the NFL made after 50 or 60 years of existence. That to me says you are accelerating at an astronomical pace. Remember, my dissertation's on the stock market. Y'all don't know. Do y'all understand how a stock is valued? A stock is not valued based on how much money the company has made. Some of the companies on the market haven't made any money. They're losing money. Uber was losing billions for years, but it still had a multi-billion-dollar valuation. Why was that? How could that be? Well, the reason Uber had a multi-billion-dollar valuation, even as they were losing billions of dollars, is because the valuation of a stock is only partly based on where you are. It's based on where the hell you're going. It's based on growth rate. It's based on how much money you're going to make in the future. They use what they call a discount factor. There's a whole simple model. Every financial asset in the universe is valued in the same way. My specialty was asset pricing. So what I'm telling you is that you create that raggedy ass sports league that's probably going to have glitches and mistakes everywhere. It's not even a fraction of what the NFL is, but that literally is the instant generation of billions of dollars in black wealth because the asset is not valued based on what it has. It's based on what it's going to acquire after you work out the kinks, after you put 20, 30 years of work in, after you've continued to make investments, after you picked up more partnerships. So by the time your kids and grandkids get a hold of that league, they are sitting on tens of trillions of dollars. They're going to be making trillions. How do I know this? Well, because if you went back to the NFL, if you went back 80 years ago in the NFL and you told them, one day you're going to have teams that are going to be worth more than $1 million, they'd have looked at you like you were crazy. They'd say, what are you talking about? No one would pay $1 million for an NFL team. I'm being quiet right now because I'm mad and I'm looking something up. I'm kidding you. I'm not kidding. I want you to just understand this is a lesson on vision. If I go back 80, 90 years and I said, if I went back to the 1930s when the NFL was struggling, when all the teams were folding, when they didn't think they were going to survive past the Great Depression, and I said to them, Do you know one day an NFL team is going to be worth, if I say $1 billion, they would not believe me at all. But if I said a million, they would say, no way. Impossible. What are you talking about? What are the valuations of NFL teams now? The cheapest team in the NFL right now is the Cincinnati Bengals, that is valued at $4.71 billion. The most expensive team in the NFL is the Dallas Cowboys. They're worth 10.3 billion. And the value is going to double in the next 5 to 10 years because now they're letting private equity into the equation. Private equity firms are going to come in and explode the values of these NFL teams. The Los Angeles Rams, remember, you could buy an NFL team for $100 when they first started. Los Angeles Rams, 7.79 billion. New York Giants, 7.65 billion. More white wealth. New England Patriots, 7.3 billion. More white wealth. San Francisco 49ers, 6.86 billion. More white wealth. New York Giants, 6.8 billion. Miami Dolphins, 6.7 billion. Philadelphia Eagles, 6.75 billion. Las Vegas Raiders, 6.7 billion. Washington Commanders, 6.3 billion. Chicago Bears, 6.26 billion, even though they suck. I live in Chicago. The Bears suck. But they're worth but even while they suck, they're worth $6.26 billion. And again, I want you to really process this. If I went back 100 years and if I even said, one day I'm from the future and one day these teams could be worth as much as $1 million a piece, they wouldn't even believe me. They would say, no way, no way, no, there's no way an NFL team's going to be worth $1 million. So when I say 10 trillion, that number sounds crazy to you because you don't know nothing. I don't know nothing. We don't know nothing about the future. We can't see the future. If you think you see the future, then you're probably wrong. I try to see it. I try to visualize it, but I don't know. So what I'm saying to you is that when I hear these guys talk like they can't start their own sports league, that's really defeated thinking. Stop thinking that you got to know everything. Stop thinking that you understand the plan that God has for you. God understands the plan, but you don't. You ain't smart enough. You listening to your plans, you're listening to Massa's plan. You need to go ahead and let God's plan play itself out. And sometimes that requires something that we claim that we have, but we really don't. It's called faith. Faith means, okay, I know this can be great, and I'm going to keep investing as if it's going to be great, but I can't see it right now. You're not supposed to see it. Just like NFL owners could not see how this league was going to survive in the 1930s when you're surrounded by the Great Depression. So what I would just say to you, and I'm going to end this conversation here. We went way over time. Is when I see what happened with Shedeur and I see him not being picked by these teams, I don't agree with that. I want to make that clear because we start off talking about Shedeur, and my goal is not to beat up on a 22-year-old. I don't fight with kids. That's not even fun or interesting. I think he should be drafted. I think he should be allowed to be whatever he wants to be. But I believe the teams are probably thinking about the outside stuff, right? The distractions. Like, and I don't know, does anybody remember when Deion brought MC Hammer to a Falcons game and Hammer was on the sidelines? Like, I don't think everybody liked that, right? So I mean, I thought it was the coolest thing ever because I was a Cowboys fan and I loved that guy. I thought he was great, but not everybody wants that for their organization. And rather than simply reducing it to a racial issue and being offended by it, sometimes what is perceived as disrespect is really the universe's way of telling you that you're too big to live under somebody else's roof anyway. Like when I felt disrespected by my father when I was 21 years old because he talked to me when I came home and he talked to me like a kid, that was the universe's way of telling me that you're a grown man now. You need to get up out the house. So I moved out of the house, and when I got my own place, we got along again. But if I had tried to stay a little boy and stay inside his house, we would have had a lot of conflict throughout the years. So the problem that Black men run into a lot in many cases is that you see your value. You have all the confidence in the world, but you're in a space that does not facilitate Black people having the same confidence as the owner. The owners have power that you don't have. You are literally like a person walking in someone else's home and trying to make rules in the house. And then when they tell you that this is not your house, you get offended by that. Oh, that ain't right. That's racism. No, it's economics, sir. It's economics. You can be if you want to be the boss, you want to be the man, you want to be the leader, whatever it is you want to be, you can do all of that. But as any rapper could tell you, you got to pay the cost to be the boss. And the cost is not just scoring touchdowns or, or showing off on TV. The cost is doing the quiet work required over 10, 20, 30-year period to build an institution of your own. And that is something that we have to process because that is not the culture. Doing the quiet work and banging away and building something sturdy, that's not the culture. The culture is the Diddy culture. Loud, obnoxious, telling everybody how great you are. Diddy used to run around. Rappers do it all the time. They'll tell you all day, hey, it's black owned, y'all. We got black owned liquor, y'all. Then you look at the details of the deal. Oh, you don't own anything. You're actually just the mascot, Diddy. That's what you are. You're not actually an owner, because if you really own this company, you would say that's my factory, that's my plant, that's where we make the liquor, and that's where I hired 50,000 black people to help me get the job done. No, you're a mascot. Your job was to go to parties, dance around like a little kid, and get attention. That's childlike behavior. They said, no, you go, you be the baby. We're gonna put a diaper on you. In fact, that would be real lit. You have a diaper like the bad boy. He had the bad boy logo where they had a little pacifier in his mouth. That's a perfect logo because you're the little baby. And we want you to go out and whine and scream and yell and do little cute little dances so you get everybody's attention. We'll do the grown-up work over here. We'll do the adult. We'll go in the lab and mix the formulas that'll create the product, and we'll think about the distribution and the manufacturing and the marketing systems, and we'll go and work out the lending deals and then work with the investors. That's grown up stuff. But you're a black male. You need to just do the little kid stuff. Jay-Z. Remember when they pretended like Jay-Z owned the Brooklyn Nets, and that was all, in my opinion, a hoax. They told everybody, oh, he owns. We got a black-owned basketball league, y'all, or basketball team, y'all. We got to support that. And then when you looked at the fine print, you found out Jay-Z only owned 1/16 of 1% of the team. That means if you took the whole team, chopped it into 1,600 pieces, he gets one. The other 1,599 pieces belong to these Russian billionaires who were quietly in the back doing the work, who were the grown-ups in the transaction. Jay-Z, they said, oh, you're a black male. We just need you as the mascot. And that's the role that the black male's relegated to. That's why the most famous black men in America tend to be people like comedians, Drewski, or athletes or rappers. And what's really true though is when you're talking about building empires, you need people that have that sturdy, consistent, quiet, strong work ethic that are committed to doing the work without all the fanfare and the limelight and everything else. You don't need attention-seeking, pleasure-seeking buffoons out here trying to lead a community. That's why the black community gets left behind. And that's also a problem because it trickles down to a lot of our families. A lot of us had, if you're old enough to remember this, a lot of us had strong, solid fathers who would get up and work hard every day and take care of business and handle business. They didn't have to be loud about it, but you knew that they were solid. We don't have those solid men like we used to. And I believe it's all connected to the culture. So let's get some solid stuff going on. Let's do the work. Let's build something. And then when you build something of your own, you don't have to take orders from anybody. You don't have to care. Racism really does go away. Systematic racism leaves when you leave the system. That's what it is, right? So if you feel like the school system's racist, you're probably right. Well, why haven't we built our own school systems? Why are we sending our children into a burning building, into a house where we know that the environment's very toxic and they're going to be mistreated? That's brainwashing. So this is why economic elevation and consciousness is critically important when it comes to dealing with the problems that we're faced with. So I'm going to stop talking now. Thank you guys for listening. I wasn't right about everything. I know there are other opinions, and I respect that immensely. But I want to say humbly, thank you so much for joining me every day. I think there's over 1,000 of you that came in today. That's most of the time on Saturdays. We don't have over 1,000 people listening, so that's really cool. That's nice that you guys wanted to come by and hang out. And I'll be around a little bit later. Let me see. Don't forget, we have the Economic Elevation Summit happening in Miami, May 9th and 10th. So if you'd like to come down to Miami, or you're in the area, you want to fly down or drive down and work together in person, we're doing workshops during that time. So it's not just it's a lot of networking, a lot of workshops to help you actually functionally build and develop things while you're there. So if you want to come down, you can go to economicelevationsummit.com. That's economicelevationsummit.com. And there will be a virtual pass. I don't have the link, but I'll text the virtual pass link out to you. Make sure you're on the text list for this class. You text the word morning to the number 87948. So text morning to 87948. All right, guys, have a wonderful day. God bless you. Thank you so much for listening.